So basically, back when I started learning about VR, I really wish that as a product designer, I had a resource like this. I came into this space not knowing much, but just having the passion of trying to figure out what I need to do to piece everything together. So a little bit about me, as Andy said. I'm a product designer, and I've designed apps for multiple digital platforms, from the banking industry to retail, and even for the Apple Watch back then. So back in 2014, my experience in VR was going to the GDC conference. I remember waiting in line for about 20 minutes for I don't know what. All I remembered was seeing people with a box on their head, and somehow they had this huge smile on their face, and I just wanted to figure out what it was. As soon as I put it on, I looked down, and I realized that my outfit changed. I was in a spacesuit. It was a shooting game, a spaceship's shooting game. So there seems to be something about space and getting people immersed in this area. I'm noticing that pattern here and there. That piece of device I had on my head was the Oculus DK2. It was the previous version before the actual consumer version that came into market. A few days later, it was acquired by Facebook for $2 billion. At that moment, I knew that there was a lot of potential for this device. So the questions I had were quite a lot. Starting in from scratch, I want to know what other experiences can I try outside of this space game? What is VR being used for right now? What do I physically need to use VR, and what is that investment look like? What tools do I need to start making products for this space? And where can I fit in as a UX designer? What skills are transferable? So that basically sets up our agenda on what I'm going to cover today. So what is VR? We all know that it is an experience that immerses you into a brand new world that's in a digital headset. We call these HMDs for short. So there are multiple of industries that are currently taking part. Game and entertainment leading the way, along with training and education, branding experiences, industrial product design, medical healthcare, retail, travel, and real estate. But as you can see, there is a lot to cover, and we need more designers to play a part. For example, has anybody tried this Rick and Morty game in VR? Yeah? What's really great about this game is being the character in the show. So being taken out of of being you and being the character and interacting with the entire world around you. And all of a sudden, you feel like you're just part of the show. Training and education. So when it comes to training education, basically, when you trick the mind, you trick the body. Whatever you simulate inside your head, you could feel a lot more comfortable in the physical space. And that is what UPS is doing with some of their drivers. Before they actually get behind the wheel, they go through the simulator and actually go through different courses and pass a test before they even head over. Branded experiences. This video is taking you by Audi is taking you behind the scenes to what it's like to be in a racetrack and all of the action that happens behind it. Industrial product design. Tilt brush is one of the best tools I've ever used. What's really great about it is, as you could see on her left hand, she has this palette. And that is an interface, which is really interesting, that you could interact with. When you swipe left or you swipe right with your thumb on the controller, you'll be able to view different aspects of the controller, and it just brings in a new life to user interfaces. And believe it or not, there are actual live events that show real artists, digital artists, drawing right in front of you. There's also the ability to create do VR car design. So this product allows the user to actually draw all of these different vehicles before they actually start 3D modeling this experience. Medical healthcare. Andy mentioned being able to cure PTSD. BraveMind is a company that is doing a really great job at that. A lot of soldiers, when they come out of battle, they have this disease, and when you trick the mind and you trick the body, you could do the same thing with a lot of these soldiers and what they're going through. And even teaching doctors and teaching medical students how to do an operation. A few weeks ago, I attended VRDC, where I tried an experience of clearing a blood clot by one of these companies. I believe it was NVI Healthcare. And I went through an entire experience where I had a partner, a fellow doctor, who showed me exactly what tools to use and how to handle instruments. And even being able to use virtual reality for patients and pain management. There's actually a study out there that shows that the amount of pain that VR helps alleviate is a lot higher than taking painkillers alone. Travel. Save money. Travel in VR. Google Earth VR is really great at that. Imagine being in your living room or being in your bedroom and being able to travel to Tokyo, to Paris, to Australia, all in one sitting. Real estate. Being able to see a house remotely and having those real estate agents close the deal. Social. Anybody tried Facebook Spaces yet? Yeah? It's mainly on the Oculus Rift right now, but this is actually a hybrid of a 360 picture that I took with my friends in Portugal, and me calling my friend Susie all the way from Orange County, from San Francisco, and showing her and having her relive our entire experience down there. There's also a few notable social apps, AltSpace VR, and High Fidelity as well. So getting started. We have a lot of opportunities, but getting the right tools or understanding exactly what to invest for is a different story. There are 3 types of VR experiences: mobile-based, PC-based, and PlayStation-based. So mobile-based is the most accessible type of VR. For Google Cardboard, well, there are 3 main ones: Google Cardboard, Samsung Gear, and Google Daydream. So let's look at the cost here. Google Cardboard costs about $15, and it works well with iOS, with your iPhone and your Android phones. If you take a look at the App Store and start typing in Google Cardboard, you'll be able to get a pre-populated list of applications that have this capability of viewing on a cardboard. Samsung Gear is a bit more specified. You spend about $130 on the Samsung Gear VR, and it finally has a controller. In the past, there was no controller, and you control the device on the side of your headset. And the only phones that are capable of using or being used for this device are the Samsung Galaxy S6, S7, S8. So the total, assuming that you don't have an Android, I personally had an iPhone, I had to buy an S6 for this. The total cost is approximately between $400 and $905. Now, Google Daydream is a newer device, and it uses the Pixel phone. The cost about $79 if it's not on sale on Amazon. And the only phones that it could use is a Pixel. So it will probably cost you about $704 to $819. It's getting more and more expensive here. Sorry, guys. Now, PC-based VR. Two major players, Oculus Rift and HTC Vive. When I first got started, I wanted to design for either the Oculus or the HTC Vive, just because there's a lot more interaction that happens there. You could utilize a space, you have controllers, you could create in the entire environment and interact with more characters than you would with the other experiences. But little did I know that you need a PC. As a designer, I think most of us have MacBooks, right? So, more research. More research about that. So as I mentioned, as Tony mentioned earlier, you need a very strong computer. And right now, the computer that does it are mostly gaming laptops or desktop computers. You need to take a look at the NVIDIA card and make sure that it's about 1050 at least. So that might be, you'll be able to see this later. So if you're looking to build for Oculus Rift or investing in this one, the Oculus Rift is about $500 and the computer system is between $719 to $3,000, which gives you this type of price range. With HTC Vive, it's about $600 and gives you a range of $1,300 to about $3,600. And then finally, PlayStation-based VR, where you need two different pieces here. You have the PlayStation VR headset with the controllers, either through a camera or through the actual controllers, and you need the PlayStation 4 along with it. So it will cost you about $799 to $849. So let's get out of those hardware pieces. What I learned is when I was learning is how big game engines come into play with creating these immersive experiences. Right now, does anybody, well, now you know what a game engine is, as you can see here. It's a software framework used to create and develop games and applications, and there are two major game players here, Unity and Unreal Engine. So with Unity, you might have to learn a bit of code. It uses C#, JavaScript, and also there's a nickname, Unity script, and Boo. With Unreal Engine, you have C++ as a coding language. So definitely needs to be more designer-friendly. But what makes VR different to design for compared to all the other digital platforms? Well, first of all, we have the head-mounted displays. We have to consider how does it feel to the user. We have the physical aspect to think about, and also as soon as a user puts on a headset, they exclude everybody else around them in that space. And also, we have to consider what other controls that the head-mounted displays have. Like, for example, the Samsung VR has a side control panel. We have motion tracking hardware and input devices as well. Leap motion, well, you have the controllers, like you could see on the Vive. And you have like a mini controller for Daydream, as well as Samsung Gear VR. And also, there's a small device called Leap Motion, where you could use gesture-based interaction to play with the entire world around you without having a controller. Also, 360 degrees of viewing. One thing about designing for digital platforms is we know exactly what we're looking at. With VR, we don't. The question that you have to ask yourself, where do you direct your user's attention as soon as they put on that head-mounted display? We also have to consider the physical limitations. How much space is needed with each of the devices? Like, it could be, maybe you have a small studio, maybe you have an entire room, or maybe an entire setup like we see with our demos. And of course, what do these experiences feel for your users? Sometimes you won't realize how it really feels, as much as you love to plan, like we would love to plan exactly how it would play out in this virtual space. If it makes them sick, then maybe it's the wrong design. So, and also, who are you in this space? Are you the character? Are you the person who is experiencing the space yourself? Or are you an observer, third person, watching the story of what's happening around you? Now, where do we fit in as UX designers? So the current VR teams have about generally 6 different types of roles. You have the developer programmer, visual artist, you have the writer, story writer, the marketer, product manager, sound engineer. So typically, most of the design happens around the developer, programmer, visual artist type of crowd. But we have a lot of skill sets to contribute. We know user research, we know usability testing, information architecture, data analysis, interaction design, UI design. There's so much we have to offer, and I see VR as a really great place for us to be in. Right now, there's a lot. User interface, audio, animations, interactions, character, tutorials and documentations, camera, and far more than that. So based on this talk, where do we go from here? First step, try out as many VR experiences as you can. You need to understand what the technology is giving you. What are the capabilities? What are the feelings that you're actually getting? And even augmented reality. That's going to be a step. A lot of things that you learn in virtual reality, you'll be able to move into augmented reality as well. What other industries can this technology help? I've exposed you all to a variety of different industries, but try to think about all the problems. We'll put our designer hats on. What are the real challenges and real problems that we can solve with this type of technology? Read industry news. We need to understand exactly where the technology is headed, what it's currently being applied to. A few that I like to go to are VR Scout, VentureBeat, Reddit, TechCrunch, and Upload as well. And as you're doing right now, attend events in person if you can. Most likely, you'll have a lot of demos, so there's a lot of opportunity for you to try try VR headsets. And of course, experiment, learn, play, have fun. Right now, basically the world is your oyster. There's a lot of room for designers to come in. So where do you see yourself? Thank you.